Hello, everybody. Welcome to Bill and Ammon's Bogus Hangout. I'm going to have our guests introduce themselves. Doc,
Hey everybody, Doc Sheldon here of Intrinsic Value SEO.
Terry,
Terry Van Horn, have something to announce in a while
and I'm Bill
next week.
Skolsky at SEO by the Sea and Director of SEO Research at Go Fish Digital. So, uh, is sentiment a ranking signal at search engines? Does Google perform sentiment analysis to decide how to rank something?
Well, they've clearly said that they don't.
But they don't ignore sentiment, they do show it. Like in knowledge graphs, you see little sentiment snippets or
Uh,
reviews that where people are expressing strongly one feeling or another about a place that they might have visited.
yeah,
So
wow.
Google's paying attention to some sentiment.
Well, I know
It,
one thing I have seen. If I do a Google search for worst, let's say worst security plugins for WordPress, or conversely, best security plugins for WordPress, I will see results that lean towards my query. There'll be a lot of negative results if I'm asking for the worst, and there'll be a lot of positive results if I'm asking for the best. So I'm having a hard time buying that they don't pay, like Danny had said, that they do not even pay any attention to sentiment. But beyond that, algorithmically, I think it's extremely difficult for an algorithm to go beyond that. If the title of the thing says best plugins, okay, they could connect that.
Well, they're matching your query your uh, with
Exactly.
documents that include that query term,
Yeah.
best or worst.
Which isn't necessarily really sentiment, right? I mean,
Right. It's matching a string.
it's more ingrammar.
however,
Yeah.
however, since they've been putting more and more personalization into the results, I remember when on Google, you would find both sides of a topic. Two sides, not one. That's all you get now is one. Like they tell you what you already know, basically, or only give you opinions that agree with you. It seems this has been a bugaboo of mine and Steve's. He may join us later. We've been talking about it for years on the regulators. That after personalization, you got one side of a story. That's it. That's why at the end when he said, "Oh, there's two opinions. There's both sides of an opinion." In the results, I thought to myself, Jesus Christ, what are you searching for? Because I don't see it.
So when Google came out with the top stories, they have a patent that describes top stories and how they identify stories that might be the subject of top story carousel results. And they said, in addition to these top stories, we'll also be showing opinion stories about the same topics. So the opinion stories, they expressly said in that patent, are intended to be showing both sides, good or bad, like or dislike. They're trying to provide more sides to the story than just one.
Yeah, so you think they've seen that is a bit of they are skewed a bit. They
They
need
they
to even
recognize
it
that
out.
there's a
So
potential for a filter bubble. Yes.
yeah,
Yeah, there's some
okay.
confirmation bias in that, when you just go with the search query.
I think too the way a person writes a search query, right? They
Yeah.
can see bias in that. I'm sure. Just when you, especially in a question, you can see intent in a question,
All right.
and I'm sure they're using it there.
Yeah. When you're
Well, I
asking,
can't say for sure, but it seems that's a place where it would be most likely to be used.
so if the idea behind a query, behind the response to a query, is to fill the situation and informational needs of a searcher, and you're asking for all the bad stuff about something, and they show it to you, they're not necessarily purposefully biasing it. They're just giving you what you asked for.
Yeah, yeah. Just like systemic racism. It just happens. Not much you can do about it.
Well, not quite the same thing, but
In the same category.
mhm,
Happens and no one knows how, but it happens.
yeah. So I wrote a blog post last year about a way of answering queries using knowledge graphs that were built on the fly. They would take the query, submit it to search, re- return a lot of results, and build a knowledge graph out of those results and answer the question with that knowledge graph. So it seemed one-sided. It seemed like they were describing one half of something. So recently a patent came out where they talked about ranking entities. And they said, okay, we'll do a search, we'll return the results, we'll extract all the entities out of those results, and then we'll put them in the order that you asked for. So if you ask for something like best novels of 2020, that's what they're doing. So they're building a knowledge graph out of all those results and then answering the question with it.
How would they determine best?
They would look for pages that seemed to be relevant to that query. So they would look for pages that said, okay, these are the best novels of the year. They would find 20, 30, 40 pages that,
So kind of like how they rank almost anything. They count how many times the entities or whatever on the page and score it that way. Ranking it by the entities.
they rank it by the entities. They might rank it by the attributes for the entities. So if you say, show me the best American novels of 2020, they'll look at all the pages that say these are the best novels of 2020 and then pull out all the entities that are American novels.
Right.
So that's how they're sort of extracting entities and building a knowledge graph with those to answer the question.
Right, because there's all those bits that are attached to the entity that they can use to filter,
Yeah.
say for American or whatever. Now that makes a lot of sense.
Right. So if you do a best TV series, you could do something like all the houseplants that filter air quality, and it'll give you a bunch of pages that respond to that, and they'll do a carousel at the top of those that show different houseplants that are helpful for air quality, and that fits along with.
Oh,
See, that's
so
ranking entities too, but by attributes.
right. So it'd be almost like how they take a collection of pages to rank it for a query.
Yeah.
Similar in the way the methodology that they would use to do it. Look
Yeah,
at a
they're-
whole bunch of stuff and analyze that, pull it out.
So they're doing a lot of analysis in a very short period of time by doing that.
But a lot of that is in those like neural networks and shit, right?
They didn't mention neural networks in the patent.
A knowledge
It's
graph
more-
wouldn't
it's
be
more-
part of
it-
that network?
It's more of a knowledge graph approach.
Oh, okay. But a knowledge graph wouldn't be part of that neural network?
No, a neural network is a way of looking at a bunch of testing data at different levels to filter it based
Okay.
on different features.
So not in the same. Okay, I'm starting to understand now.
So a neural network you can use to classify websites based upon a
Right.
bunch of known websites that you already have an
Ah,
idea that are categorized in certain ways. Google will say, okay, this is what a medical website should be like. This page has all these features that
So
make
they're
it a medical
also-
website. So
yeah,
that's
and
what
they're
neural
also
network's doing.
performing, they're also doing two different functions then too for them.
Right.
Okay.
So knowledge graph is traditionally one type of artificial intelligence in that it's organizing information in a structure that could be uh, information could be taken from easily. It could be searched based upon, say, attributes and uh, relationships between different entities and classifications and so on, but it's not the same as a neural network searching for features based on testing data. But it was good seeing that patent come up talking about ranking entities that fit so well with the earlier patent about answering questions using knowledge graphs. And when Google introduced a knowledge graph in 2012, it said, okay, one knowledge graph. Tell us more about this. I didn't expect to see them talking about multiple knowledge graphs based upon individual queries.
Well, from a processing standpoint, I suppose it would make sense that they would build multiple and then only have to sort or screen smaller subsets.
They did another patent that talked about user-specific knowledge graphs, where stuff that was important to you, that maybe you would write about in an email to somebody, and Google would search emails because they can do that, or they can search your calendar. So
Breathe, Terry, breathe.
I don't want to hear that. That's why I don't use Gmail.
So they're personalizing results for you based upon a knowledge graph that's personal to you, but you're the only one who can get those results. They're supposedly not showing those other people. They're avoiding sharing personally identifiable information.
That was probably how remember back a while back when you did a search, other people that you were following on G Plus would come up in the results.
Yeah.
Would that be part of how they're doing that?
They knew that you were connected to those people. You would
Right.
put them in circles or so on.
Well,
So
Dave and I found they were also using email.
Well, then you go to the other extreme. You got something like TikTok that's reading your clipboard and harvesting that.
They read
I
the
don't.
clipboard. I don't use TikTok, but TikTok actually reads the clipboard.
They actually
You're talking about my clock?
they actually scan your clipboard and harvest that data.
TikTok. I've heard it all now.
Don't use TikTok either.
Never. Is that for kids?
TikTok?
Yeah.
I used to be the other impression it was, but I'm seeing an awful lot of so-called adults on there.
Oh,
So
yeah. Sure, they're not pedophiles.
Sure. Yeah, maybe they're just regression. I don't know.
Is Snapchat?
Greg Campbell is on there all the time.
Is
Oh, yeah.
Snapchat for kids?
Which one?
Snapchat.
Snapchat? Yeah, that was for the youngsters that were kind of a pre-Tinder, I think, wasn't it?
For kids in high school, yeah. Tinder for high school students.
Is there a Tinder for high school kids?
I'm glad after Facebook I said no more. No, Twitter, excuse me. No, Google Plus was the last one, I guess.
So I haven't seen Google Connect yet. I thought that was supposed to be the replacement for Google Plus.
Well, maybe
it's Google Currents.
Maybe they just decided to get ahead of the curve and go ahead and delete it now before launch.
Yeah. Let's save some time. We'll just kill it now.
Yeah, it would.
Well, they let everybody sign up and then kill it.
Yeah.
So then, I guess I've been looking at a program. Talk to the person next week about it, but it's putting entities into the using schema in your head of your document. I'm starting to think that's really good, especially. I started looking up. You wouldn't believe what you can find entity-wise on Wikipedia. Like you look up skill set, and it's actually there's a page on it, but it redirects to skill.
Yeah. So not every entity that's in Wikipedia needs to meet that notability requirement. If it's a more mundane type entity like peanut butter, it can be in Wikipedia. It doesn't have to be notable like a person might have to be.
Right. Well, they covered pretty well everything. I think was their basically what they wanted to do.
Mm-hmm. So we're going to get further into that. The person you're talking about,
Yes, we'll be getting into that with Dixon about his new program. I've started working with it, and I like it.
Well,
I see where it's going to help writing copy.
So we make an announcement about that
this week and next week.
Today
or tomorrow, yeah. Oh, you're telling me, are you?
on the show.
By 3 o'clock, Terry.
Oh, I hear you now, Bill. Sorry. Yeah, I'm a little slow on the pickup today.
No problem. How you doing, Steve?
I'm good. How are you guys doing today?
Good.
Hey, good. Hi, Steve.
So Terry was saying you have some thoughts about whether or not Google uses sentiment to rank pages?
Who, me?
Yeah.
No.
I don't know about Google. I don't know nothing.
No, but we've discussed often on the regulators and whatnot, Steve, how you only see one side of things. The side that it doesn't show both sides of a topic often.
Sure.
Just
and that's an issue that has gotten a lot worse with current political sentiment. I'm in a discussion right now with some people who are convinced that Google is modifying the search results based on political leanings.
Well,
do they realize how much work that is?
Well, and I tried to explain to them that politics is not a ranking factor. And I showed Doc the thread where she, at the end of my lengthy discussion, she said, fine. And I replied, bless your heart.
So where does Google fall amongst the Fox to CNN continuum?
It depends on who you ask.
Yeah.
Because their filter bubble will show exactly where they feel like it falls. But
well, that's exactly what nobody seems to understand, that their search history and their connections and all these things have a major impact on what they see in their search results.
So Google's like a mirror.
Yep.
Yeah.
Very much. I've been anti-personalized results since they first started doing it.
Yep.
It's like I don't, and now you've got some of like Safari's doing some autocomplete on the URLs where maybe you went to a web page that talked about, blue balls, and you went to do another search for blue balls, and instead of taking you to a search result, it takes you to that page again. It's like, no, I don't want to go to that page.
I was just there.
To a search result.
There are some parts of what Google does that aren't necessarily personalization, but they could be called that. They could be called context. They do that sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I search for football I mean the type where people wear helmets and the football is oval shaped.
Yeah.
But when somebody from Australia or somebody from Europe searches for football, that's not the football they want to see.
Right.
In
Exactly.
Australia, could be one of two, probably.
Such culture. I know if Google were really personalized, when I put a search in Italian, it would give me Italian results, but it doesn't
It's
because I'm looking for Italian results, right?
They do have a patent for that. They say they could try to recognize the language that the query was in, and return results based upon that language.
Oh, good. Well,
I haven't seen them do that, but
I have. When
Oh,
I
you
when I
have?
look when I look for something in Spanish,
Uh-huh.
not every time, but often when I look for something in Spanish, it will show me Spanish results. But it doesn't switch me over to googlecom.mx. It just gives me Spanish results in Google.
so I was curious about how they might respond if I searched for gasoline, but I searched in Cantonese. So I used Google Translate and I translated gasoline into Cantonese and performed the search on Google using the word I copied and pasted in, and they took me to Chinese results in China. So if I was Chinese looking for a local gas station, I would have been stuck.
So did you try doing the same search with petrol instead of gasoline?
I did not.
I just wondered, as like soccer and football, what happens if you change the search word?
I'm not sure what people in China refer to the gasoline that they
I'm not
put in their
either.
car.
No idea.
I know if I search for Jaguar, it'll give me the hockey team, not the football team, because I watch hockey.
Oh, okay. Well, it knows that much about you, Terry.
Not much more.
Yeah.
I still to this day have issues with local search. Even when I'm logged in with my address clearly defined, I type in, car washes in Lexington. 9 times out of 10, they give me car washes in Lexington, Kentucky, 3 hours away, instead of Lexington, Tennessee, that's only 15 miles away. And it's been going that way for years. They aren't even close to having that resolved for people like us.
Is your provider closer to Kentucky, Steve? Is that it?
My provider's satellite, but I'm logged into Google, and Google knows my address. If I go to Google Maps,
Oh, okay. I see what you're
it
saying.
brings up my blue dot for my house. I mean, it's not like I'm not logged in. If for me to find anything locally, I can't use a city name. I have to say near me,
Oh, okay.
and it gets it right. But if I give it a city name because I don't want to go to Savannah, I want to go to Lexington, all bets are off. I have to include zip codes or things like that to have a shot at getting anything close.
Well, I would assume that if you said in Lexington, Tennessee, that it would give you what you want.
Then it gives me a mix.
I lived.
To give you a mix?
Even if you say Lexington, Tennessee, it gives you the other Lexington?
I lived 5 miles away in Cardiff, California.
Uh-huh.
And I would search for Cardiff pizza, and it would show me Great Britain.
Yeah. That pizza's got to be pretty good to go that far.
It'd be pretty cold, too.
It ain't going to be hot when it gets there.
So do you have to put in Cardiff by the Sea in order for it to work?
That helped.
But isn't
I
it?
think that's the official name of the town, isn't it? Cardiff by the Sea.
I'm sorry?
I think that's the official town name is Cardiff by the Sea.
The
For the one that's near you.
official town name is Encinitas.
You're instant. Oh, is Cardiff part of
Cardiff is
Encinitas?
part of Encinitas.
Okay.
They have 5 different neighborhoods in Encinitas. They have
Okay,
Cardiff,
yeah.
they have Allaheim.
Oh, that
Yeah.
goes out that far. Okay.
Yeah, they have Old Cardiff, Old Encinitas, New Encinitas. I forget what the 5th one is.
I didn't realize Cardiff was part of Encinitas now. But I guess that illustrates that I can't talk. That specificity in queries helps with search results.
Bullshit.
Yeah, got to be specific.
Did we?
I read that article too. It's bullshit. Or at least in my experience, it's bullshit.
So you're still going
I've
to get.
had lots of full topic, full page content.
Yeah.
You put the entity that you want in the SERP at the top.
Right.
First thing on the page. If your page has authority, it'll get in. It doesn't matter whether it's specific or what did he call it? Some fancy word for lots of words.
Mm.
Stuff like that pisses me off when I read it.
I miss her.
I never would have guessed.
You're lucky.
See, I just learned something new. I was unaware Terry could read.
Oh, Lordy.
Steve, you kill me.
Did we talk a couple weeks ago about Facebook knowing about property purchases?
Hmm.
So, I don't remember if we talked about it here on the show or not. I got a notice from Facebook for one of my clients' pages wanting to make some changes to their Facebook page, automated changes. And I'm like, well, let me take a quick look and see what those are, because usually that's a no.
Yeah.
Right.
And they wanted to change the address of the business, and they wanted to change the phone number. And I thought that was kind of weird, so I thought maybe it was a competitor making a change or whatever. So I called the client just to make sure, and he's like, oh, yeah, I bought that piece of property a week ago, and that phone number is my personal cell phone. So, Facebook knew that he bought new property and had a different phone number, yet was able to associate it with his Facebook page. Nobody knew that he bought this property except for the county and the real estate agents that were involved. And it's like, where did this suggestion come from, and how did they even know to make it in just a couple of weeks after he bought the property?
Did he talk about the property on Facebook?
No. I would have known about it because he and I are, we're personal friends as well as business relations.
Oh, right.
And this was property he bought the next town over to build a house on.
Is the county tracking that using blockchain?
My only guess is somehow they're getting county records, from everywhere, property records that they filed, and then they're making random associations. Well, not random; it's pretty specific association.
Tennessee isn't the state I would expect to be leading that charge, but there are jurisdictions that offer APIs to organizations that sell insurance or title search, and you get the API and pull it. They've done that.
Well, and that's all. And that on all of this falls inside the Nashville metro area.
Okay.
So it's very likely that they would get those records or could get them.
I asked about blockchain because Sweden is trying to use blockchain to track purchases of property instead of using the title approach to tracking.
What's the
reverse
rationale,
title
Bill?
searches. It supposedly will cut down on fraud.
How much fraud is there in people buying property?
It's a way of keeping track of different possessions that people have, money, things like that. You know, if you try that with property, it's a way of tracking that like you would track money.
Yeah, we don't have that down here. You can't even do a title search on property in Mexico. So,
Yeah, when you look at blockchain, it's perfect for transactions like real estate.
Yeah.
But then, you know, here in the States, you've got the issues of companies owning companies, which own property.
Yeah.
You know, it's easy to hide that data.
I worked for a construction company that every new project was a new company because they didn't want the whole company get sued because of a problem on one property.
When I lived in Virginia in Fauquier County, I went to the recorder of deeds office to check out some of the historic properties to see how much they sold for when they sold to different well-known historical figures in the county. And some of them were ridiculous. Like one mansion sold for $8,000 in the 1880s to the guy who bought it. Yeah. It's like he got a good deal on it.
Yep.
Just had to hang on to it for 200 or 300 years.
Right. Well, they were turning it into a museum, mainly because he lived there.
I know a guy that sold his boat for $1 because he was getting a divorce. Is that kind of the same thing?
Well, the title approach can be really harsh because you do have multiple companies that purchase property and put them through shell companies.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't be able to do that with blockchain.
No, you wouldn't. Well, you would, but you'd be able to.
It would be traceable.
It would be transparent. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It'd be traceable.
And if it's transparent, why bother?
Right. That's one way to stop fraud.
I mean, because transparency is not their primary goal.
Not at all.
So I figure domains at some point may be tracked by blockchain too.
Couldn't do any worse than all the registrars. That's for frickin' sure.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, that'd be one way for Internet and them guys to fund themselves. Because you would have no registrar in the middle. You could cut the prices significantly. It's not like it costs a lot of money to keep the records.
The registrars are doing creative things, like sites like Bitly. It's not a .ly company. It's not located in the geographic region it's supposed to be representing.
Right.
They just like having a domain that ended with .ly. And the registrar wanted to make money off of it. So it would sell them to anybody who wanted.
Most countries don't do that, though.
No. A few do. I mean, what country is a domain that ends with .io? Or the
Isle of Man?
GLD? .io?
Isn't that Isle of Man?
It could be.
It's about half the size of a football field.
Right.
TV is Tonga, I know that. CO is Colombia. They sell a lot. The unsuspecting people who think it's short for company.
There are some odd political structures that exist. Is it Safeway or Safe? No, there's a island off of Great Britain that a pirate radio station existed on.
Oh yeah.
Safe.
What, Guernsey or Jersey, you mean?
No,
No, oh, a little island.
Very little.
A little island, like half an acre.
Like Lighthouse Little.
Okay.
There's a pirate radio station that broadcasts off of it, and they
But they're just outside. They're in international waters, so
Oh, they're in international waters. Okay.
yeah, they're not in UK waters, which gives them what they were looking for.
Well, I always thought that was like the next step to legitimacy for some of these micronations, like Ladonia. They need their own TLD.
It's one way towards legitimacy. Yeah.
Just as long as they don't give us LDA.
So, speaking of the odd and unusual, Google is going to start paying news sources.
Yeah,
Yeah, I saw that.
that kind of surprised me.
So they're
I'll be
gonna-
surprised when the money actually happens, when the transaction actually happens.
So they're going to start with legitimate news organizations. What about some of these that maybe aren't quite so legitimate?
Like
Well,
a blog.
how do they decide what is, legitimate?
How do they decide what to allow into Google News?
You would think almost anybody from those countries that's in Google News is going to be lining up with their hand out.
And didn't it specifically mention paywall, Bill?
Yeah, that was why they decided to do it, because a lot of people were saying, you know what, we're not getting our end off this, so we're going to put up a paywall.
I'm really tired of clicking through a link to some paywall site and
Yeah.
being able to read 2 paragraphs and then
Google,
a button that says subscribe to read the rest.
right, and in small countries where there's only a few newspapers, if they all do it, then Google's out of the news in that country. And news is a pretty big part of all their search. So I can understand why they're paying for it.
Well, news is like 1% of Google's SERPs. The universal results,
Right.
they only have 1% of news in them.
Oh, so it's way down from what it was then for a while, eh?
It's not a big part of the results that you get.
Isn't that more because they've redefined what qualifies as a news site than anything? I mean, they have made it significantly harder to be considered a news website.
They did
Yeah.
mention last year, Danny Sullivan did in Twitter, that top stories are no longer limited to news sites. They'll show top stories from blogs from other sites that aren't registered as Google News sites. So they've sort of
So they still show up
narrowed
in
it, but
top
then
stories?
expanded it again. Yeah.
They also removed AMP as a prerequisite for news.
For top stories, yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I said news. I meant top stories, yes.
And they expanded Speakable so that it applies to more than just news sites.
Yeah.
So okay.
Sorry, checking up on a client.
No problem. So it is surprising that Google's going to pay. They're going to license some of that news because they've been fighting that battle for a few years.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't a bunch of European news sites about 5 years ago demand that Google start paying? And
Yeah.
Google said,
Yeah.
Several years
"We'll
ago.
tell
Yeah.
you what, we'll do that someday." And you're no longer in Google News.
Now, the next question that pops into my mind is, who decides how much Google is going to pay the register for showing their content in the results?
Google,
Google.
just like Amazon determines how much they're going to pay affiliates. We sent you this much traffic. We've determined that's worth 12 cents. There you go.
Don't spend it all in one place, right?
Right.
Here's your 12 cents for the month.
I'm sorry, your PayPal account didn't hit the $100 threshold. We won't be paying you this month. Because I could see them making that hard on the backside. It's like, okay, yeah, we'll go ahead and pay you for your news. Here's all the paperwork you need to fill out. We need all of this information to be able to send you the money, and we need you to do all this stuff every month to maintain.
And you've got to show us, prove to us that this data that we're scraping off your site to show in our SERPs is something you actually own. It's actually your copyright.
It's generated by you, and it's not an aggregate of something else.
Yeah, that could be a royal hoop to jump through for some of those organizations.
Big hoop. So what happens? What happens with, let's say, we take a European newspaper like Le Monde, which is, established news journal in France, and Google wants to pay them to get news, but if you read Le Monde independently, there's a paywall. If they have a paywall, are they not going to show up in Google?
If you go directly to their website, Google won't get
Okay.
a cut. If you access them through Google, Google's going to claim that they were being used as a channel to access that site, and they deserve to.
So we're going to see a return of the bookmark this page logo on people's websites again. Google really needs to hire people like me to show them how to make real money.
You don't have time for that stuff, Steve. You're too busy studying to be a benevolent dictator.
Yeah. I got the dictator part down. It's the benevolent part that I struggle with.
That's the part that needs some practice, eh?
It's hard being kind.
Of course, Google's got to be a little bit disappointed by the fact that their workforce is no longer quite as remote. So they're not providing all their employees with a second home.
Yeah.
Dry cleaners, 3 meals a day, and so on. It's as if they graduate college and they don't have to go out and get jobs. They stay at their internship. And they just keep on working for Google and have everything taken care of them for them.
That's always been my biggest complaint about Google is they don't have very few people who've actually been in the real world. They start off in their Montessori schools, then they go to a private school, then they go to private high school, then they go to an Ivy League college, then they go to Google. At no point have they ever had to wonder where their next meal was going to come from. So for them, the world is just random numbers, and when they make a change, sure, some people win, some people lose. It's just the way it is. It's no big deal, except for the people who lose.
Can't all be winners, though.
That's true. But when you spend 5, 6, 10 years building a business, and Google is a large part of that, or Amazon or whatever, and they all of a sudden decide that you're no longer the flavor of the month because they tweaked a digit in an algorithm somewhere, and you're all of a sudden wiped out. I mean, yeah, it's hard to blame Google because you've made the choice to rely on them. But, I've got clients that used to be 100% Etsy. It's like, you can't be 100% Etsy. You got to branch out. So then they're Etsy and Amazon. It's like, that's great. Now you need your own website. And now we need to have different funnel, you've got to have all these wheels on your platform, because who knows when one of them is going to get taken away from you. And trying to get people to understand that is a challenge. Because at the moment, they're doing really well. And why change anything? It's doing really well.
It ain't broke, don't fix it, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Problem is when it breaks, then it's too late to fix it usually.
Yep.
Right. If you're a member of the Amazon Marketplace, you've got to run things according to Amazon's rules.
Yeah.
Because it's their marketplace, not yours.
Well, and then you've got, with Amazon, it's like, well, are you a white label reseller? Are you a Chinese manufacturer? Are you bringing in product, an importer? Or are you on the handmade side where you're here in the United States making your own stuff? And it is just dealing with Amazon is a total nightmare. And I've got a couple clients that are there, and it is rough. It is really rough.
Don't they have a special site now for handmade stuff, like you just mentioned? There's a whole level of.
Yep. It is tough to get into the handmade program, but once you're in, it's nice because generally you've got stuff that is hard for people to knock off.
Right.
Oh, right, because it's yours. Yeah, that makes sense.
Because it's yours. You're making it. And then the next level beyond that is going ahead and getting your brand registry set up. And then you control everything you've trademarked and, patented. And actually, there's some tools to help you fight copycats, where the vast majority of people selling on Amazon, there's a reason why there's 8 million different people selling spatulas. Because they all looked at a chart that said, hey, there's room in the spatula market. And they go to and they have somebody kind of manufacture their stainless steel spatulas, and they ship them over by the container and put them in an Amazon warehouse, and then wonder why they're not selling, because they're competing against another 800 spatula sellers, because they are all looking at the same damn software saying, this is the market to get into. I mean, it's sad. I went to an Amazon conference in Florida.
Don't get that started.
And this was put on not by Amazon, but by a couple of the tool sellers. And we're talking to people who have literally invested their last dime in having a product manufactured in China to be brought over to the United States, to be put in the Amazon warehouse to sell, with the theory that they're going to make enough money to do it again. And the vast majority of those people were not picking products that they had any faith or belief in, but they were picking the products based on the numbers that piece of software told them could potentially be profitable. I talked to one guy who had dropped $1,000 in neck pillows.
In what?
Neck pillows. Yeah. Not because he liked them or anything else, but because that's what the software said was the best point for him to get into. And then there's another piece of software that ties into that tells you how to do your marketing so you can be the top listing, and on and on and on. And Amazon is so heavily gamed. It is tough. And that's assuming that the Chinese manufacturer doesn't come in the side door and screw you, which is common.
Which happens a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, because you'll go to the manufacturer and go, okay, here's my initial design, send me a prototype. So they send you a prototype and you go, I want to make these tweaks, or I want to make those tweaks. And over the next 3 to 4 months, you're tweaking your product, getting it perfect. In the meantime,
They've shipped 6 containers of it.
Going out, yeah, exactly. Going out the side door to their cousin are your first, second, and third prototypes that were perfectly fine. They just weren't perfect. And they're already on Amazon 2 or 3 months ahead of you. I know guys that are, there's one guy in particular, anything that becomes a trend, fidget spinner, pet rocks, you name it. Whatever it is, the first moment he sees it and says, that's going to be big, he buys $100,000 worth of them, has them made in China, shipped to Amazon, and blows them out. And that's how he makes his living. And he's like, and he never does a second order. Ever. It's always one shots and out. And he'll double or triple his money every single time and beat every single one of those people to market.
Smart.
I mean, look at those neck gaiters are the new big thing. You wear them, like the scarf that you can pull up over your face for.
Oh,
No.
yeah.
Watch Amazon. The number of sellers on that in the last 2 months has gone up by like a factor of 10. And I expect over the next month for that to double or triple yet again.
For COVID.
Yep. Because all of a sudden everybody's like, oh, we need to get this. So now I need to come up with a pattern and then this and then that. And in the meantime, they're going out the side door from the Chinese manufacturer through one of his cousins and beating you to market every single time.
Or people are just using a handkerchief.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
I mean,
the neck gaiter used to be something that was kind of like outdoor sports thing.
Yeah.
You know, that was the market was, you know, campers and hikers and canoers
I got my first neck gaiter in the 90s when I got my motorcycle because they were great to wear on the bike.
yeah.
You know, it's like, you know, it's going to get cold, but it's not cold now. And you're wearing your little half helmet and you wear your neck gaiter. When it starts getting cold, you pull that sucker up over your face. Life is good.
In
But-
Canada,
I
there's
haven't had mine that long, but like 10 years maybe. 10 years.
where I'm from, they're standard issue to kids.
They
Or
are?
where when I was young, oh yeah. It's cold here, you know.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, and they don't fall off like a scarf.
Right. And you can wear it. It's easy.
I haven't seen too many of those around here.
Yeah, not in California.
If they are, run. They probably got a gun gonna rob you. So just we were talking earlier. Bill and I are starting to do a show. The first show will be on the 9th of July at 1 o'clock. Be with Dixon Jones. And we're going to be talking about inlinks.net. I've been working with the program, like it so far. And we're going to be talking about a report that he did on the entities that they're putting into the head of documents. That's pretty interesting as well. So hope to see you then. Search Geeks, I guess, is done. I've moved on. But the shows will be very similar to Search Geeks. It'll always be usually search related.
You got a name for it yet, Terry?
Yeah, I don't know. Bill and I have yet to decide a name.
So how do we
In
find
case
it?
somebody wanted to watch it and was dumb enough to go to Google and try to find a link for it, I mean.
That'll all be tomorrow. I'll put it all up.
Oh, okay.
Talk to Bill about a name after the show. We never went into the big details. Just decided we were going to do it. And
How about Bill and Terry's Not Quite So Bogus Hangout?
Amazon affiliate secrets.
There you go.
they'd be lining up for that one. Oh boy. Yeah, there's a lot of people in that game, eh, Steve? I went to one of those when I was thinking about retiring. I was there in about 15 minutes and I looked at the person with me and I said, "This is a scam. Can't you smell it?" And she said, "No." And I said, "Well, there's here all these dings going off that are supposedly people buying things." Yeah, sorry. I'm not that gullible.
I mean, I got in a little trouble at the one I went to because there were 1,200 people there. And the person I was sitting next to, we were talking a bit. And I go, just think about this. They have this conference 6 times a year, every 2 months. And every 2 months, it's full with people just getting into Amazon.
Just like you.
That's 1,200 people every 2 months. Just this. How many people does that mean are getting into Amazon without this program? You know, why do you think websites like Alibaba are so big now? You go, I mean, some of the tools have even built in. It's like you do a search on Amazon, you do a search on Alibaba, and it links the two together and says, this is a product you can make money on.
Really? Just from an Alibaba search?
Yeah.
Well, Alibaba tells you where you go to get it manufactured.
Exactly.
But
And,
when you're doing that search, it tells you how you can make
well,
it Amazon.
it's more complex than that because the search,
Okay.
it'll say, okay, you give it some vague variables of what types of products. Maybe you want to do stuffed animals. We'll take me, for example. Let's say I want to do a little tiny stuffed Highland cow. And I type in stuffed Highland cows, and it goes to Alibaba, and it goes to Amazon, and it gets all the people selling those on Amazon, and all the people selling those on Alibaba, matches up the ones that are already linked together, and throws those out because you're competing directly against somebody now. And it's like, okay, well, this person's getting their own somewhere. And all of these on Alibaba aren't being sold yet. And then it pulls in through the Amazon API roughly how many sales are being done, how much their profit margin is estimated to be at. And it comes out and says, this particular product has a rating of 42, whatever that number is. And if you hit the sweet spot between this number and that number, you should push the button and make money. It's just that easy.
It is. Wow.
It is.
All the APIs to do it are there. You don't even have to be a really accomplished programmer to do it. Believe me, the guys I talked to weren't exactly the sharpest tools in the box, if you know what I mean.
Is there a thing, stuffed Highland cows?
Just the one in Steve's living room.
Is there a demand for stuffed Highland cows?
I don't know. I was like, I want the Stirk model.
Looks like Steve froze up.
Yeah, no, I don't know. StreamYard seems to be having trouble today. It bumped me twice.
Stuffed Highland cabbage.
Cabbage. Oh,
They do have lots of pictures of stuffed Highland cows. There are a lot of
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, I've got to go look. Whoa.
Steve raises those.
He raises the stuffed ones.
No, just the Highland cows.
Okay, I want you to know, Bill, that Google autofilled for me stuffed Highland cabbage.
You probably look for a lot of recipes on there.
I haven't had stuffed cabbage in a long time.
I haven't either. I like stuffed cabbage. I don't know. Anyway, that cracked me up when it said stuffed Highland cabbage.
I need to find a Polish delicatessen that sells stuffed cabbage. I didn't try a stuffed cabbage near you search yet.
Yep. Steve said he just had a big storm roll in. That's why he got bumped.
Oh, that's
Killed his internet.
Or
That's right.
or power.
Oh, and
or power.
see off grid.
Or he may just seen a big blast of lightning and decided to play it safe and get offline.
That's for anyway. So
I do that when there's lightning storms. I get offline. We don't have a lot here, but I used to have a lot in Northern California. Lightning storms.
So I remember having a lightning storm here once.
In Carlsbad?
Yeah,
Yeah, they happen in Carlsbad.
it was.
What I was saying, in Northern California, they happen a
about-
lot. You
about 2
know,
years ago?
north of San Francisco, where I lived in Sonoma, there were lots of
We had a butte down here
winds and
about 3
summer
or 4 weeks,
winds.
3 or 4 weeks ago. We had a big one down here with
Did
a lot
you?
of lightning. But that's probably the first time in 10 years I've seen any.
Yeah. Yeah, the rainstorms here are usually about half an inch or so.
Hmm.
that's not even a storm, is it? Really?
I don't know. In LA, on the news, they're like, "Big storm is coming. We
Right.
need some rain." You know,
Big
like,
storm is when you're walking around in your living room with boots on.
There you go.
Although I have been in LA when there really was a big storm and the streets were flooded. I mean, water was just pouring down the streets because it had no place else to go. So
Mhm.
it happens.
Oh, because everything must drain downhill all the way.
Yeah, it does. And there's,
Bottom, oh,
you
yeah.
know, it's not really prepared for big water deluge, you know.
I was we were living in Long Beach when they had a big one there. We got a lot of street flooding because all the garbage flowed into the storm drains and clogged them up.
Oh, and clogged them up. Yeah.
I got water in the glove box of my pickup.
Oh my
Parked out.
gosh. Whoa.
There's like 1.5 meters of water out there in front of the house.
That's a lot of water. That's a lot of water. And it gets powerful when it's flowing, when it's that high.
Oh yeah. And there's always some idiot who'll underestimate it and try to wade across that.
Yeah, I know.
And then you just watch him. He hits the water, goes zoop, and he's gone.
Or the people who drive into it, you know, I can do this. That's crazy. I'm sorry we lost Steve. It's so nice to see him.
It's at the top of the hour now, so we made it through most of the show with him. We've got to talk about a name, Terry.
Pardon me? Yeah,
So
talk
we've
about
gotta
a
talk
name.
I think that's it for our show today. Thank you, everybody.
See y'all later.
Everybody have a good one.